Hey, welcome back to the American Federation Baseball League. So this video is going to be a bit of a combo video between Kentucky Lions, quick background, and team preview for the 2066 season. But as you'll see, we are right near the end of May, up on May 24th. So I'm going to make sure to cover how the season has gone so far. But since I didn't get a chance to record a season preview, this can serve as your intro to the Kentucky Lions. So I took over the Kentucky Lions back in 2029 in the game. And so, I've had a couple of runs of success that I'm quite proud of. Early on, it took a few years to really rebuild and find my strategy, get things going. And then finally, we found a nice stride and went to the playoffs um, 13 times in a row, I believe. Took a quick break and retooled, and then had another streak going. Last season, missed the playoffs by just a few games. This season, hovering right about the same win percentage as last year, but I'm hopeful that we can turn things around. We'll see what the plan looks like going forward. So that's a quick team history. Um, it's been so fun to grow this team, and I really feel invested now that we're so far into the series. So let's jump into the current Major League roster. We'll start with the pitching staff, and our starting rotation is up there in age 31, 32, 34, 32, 34. So we are going to find some reinforcements very quickly, but for now, most of these pitchers right at the tail end of their peak. Specifically, Raul Arvilos is our ace. He's one of the best pitchers in the entire league. If you check out his ratings, 10, 10, 9, you don't come across that very often. So he's at 32 years old, 348 days, just a few days left of being 32. He's had a tremendous career so far, nearly 80 WAR. If you look at his starts, his stats, he's been incredibly consistent, led the league in ERA and WHIP multiple times, and even recently in innings pitched, despite his injury proneness being fragile. So he's really avoided any major injury issues in his career, and he's been one of the most electric players to have, and you can count on him throughout the season. Um, some strength in the middle of our rotation as well. Um, Judite Aldinha. Sometimes you don't know how to say these players' names, but also been a really consistent player. Those two have really been keys to our success in this latest run before we missed the playoffs last season. But he's got 10-7-6 with a couple of really plus pitches. He's been outstanding in his career as well. Our Velos came up when he was 19 years old. Aldinha didn't come up till he was 23, but still a picture of consistency for him as well. So a little bit of luck for the Kentucky Lions. Ivan Morales started this season off on the restricted list as he was suspended, but he's been another guy that's been really good. 34 years old, 12 years in the league. So that's been kind of my three-headed monster of Arvilos, Aldinha, and Morales. Two guys that are doing a really nice job so far this season. Joel Augustus, he was actually a free agent signing in the offseason 2064, right before last season. And so he split time between Kentucky last year when he did a really nice job at the back end of the rotation and a little bit down in my AAA squad in Louisville. So his ratings aren't the most impressive, but they're definitely good enough to get the job done. I like that movement rating up there at 8 and the extreme ground ball type here because our ballpark is extremely hitter friendly, um, whether that's home runs, but also extra base hits as well. Big gaps, but also short right and left field. So Augustus does a nice job. And then Mendelssohn, another guy, his stuff isn't out of this world, but that movement is really important. Needed a lefty in our rotation. There are more talented pitchers that probably could be number 5, but I wanted a lefty in there. 34 years old. So we'll see how much more he can do, but his personality class is captain as well, so I really like that. He didn't do so great last year, by the WAR numbers, but his ERA looked pretty good, 3.63 in 21 starts, and that 15 home runs could have been a little bit better in the limited amount of starts, but it was an acceptable performance from my fifth starter for sure. If we check out the bullpen, we'll start with Kane Finzer. He's a 23-year-old, just turned 23 yesterday in the game. I'm really hoping that he has lots of success in his career and health. Slider cutter combo, sidearm pitcher, throws 100 miles an hour. He was just okay last year, had a tremendous rookie season in 2064, pitched 60 innings to a 1.66 ERA and 1.4 WAR. So I've really enjoyed having him so far. He actually replaced the closer that I had been using for a long time, Ichiro Koyama. He started his career in the rotation, as you can probably tell by his ratings. Really solid. Maybe just lacking that third pitch, but good stamina all around. Sidearm, so maybe he struggled with lefties sometimes. But really, he's done an excellent job in the bullpen once he made the switch. He had a couple nice years as a starter, but I felt it was time to make him more of an effective weapon coming out of the bullpen. So those are two of my late inning guys. Alex Gaitan, a guy that if he developed a third pitch, a breaking ball, might be even more effective in the rotation. Good stamina, good stuff. And even if I switched his position to starting pitcher, his stuff remains up there at 10. So we cut off the ratings at 10, so it could be up here at 11 or even 12. Who knows? He was tremendous last year as our second setup guy. He's off to a great start again this year. Couple middle relievers. A lot of these guys, it depends whether they're hot or cold. Sometimes I'll put them into middle relief or long relief, these five here at the bottom. But we've got Luis Ramirez, 33-year-old. Great stuff. Another free agent pickup that was just out there. Maybe because of his low work ethic. He played in the independent leagues for a little bit, and I snagged him from there. But he had never made the major league roster for anyone else. I'm not sure who Vancouver. That must be Ontario's minor league system. So a really tough year, his final year in Vancouver in Double-A with a 7.20 ERA in 30 innings. So it was time for them to cut bait, and we benefited from the ability to pick him up. John Dupuis has been around for a little while. Let's check out his pitching stats. He took his turn in the rotation as well. By the time he was 29, 30, 31, it was time to find some better options in the rotation. And, his stuff has allowed him to keep playing out of the bullpen. If you switched him into the starter role, let's see, that stuff would drop down to 7, becomes a little bit less impressive. And that low movement rating sometimes came back to bite him. Let's switch him back to a reliever. You see the home runs per 9, already suffering from that this year. And so 3.5 per 9 in a small sample size, but it's something that's gotten him throughout his career. So limiting his innings pitched kind of lets us play to try to figure out if we can be on the positive side of the luck for that. We've got one of our lefties, Derek Davidson, really tremendous talent at 35 years old. He'll turn 36 this week, it looks like, and he's been pretty good, but he's got a tough personality to work with here. He's talented enough and a left-handed pitcher that I'm okay with keeping him around on the roster. He has done well, despite being drafted in the 5th round, 98th overall back in 2050. Two more guys, Joe Marikel, another guy that has been up and down a little bit. Last season wasn't so hot, off to a tough start here this year. But his ratings are good, so I'm going to keep him around. Good stamina. And then finally, Mauro Sanchez, one more lefty who's not going to throw a lot of walks. Good control rating. Not electric stuff, but a good lefty to have in the bullpen. Even though he's a fly ball pitcher, sometimes that can hurt him a little bit. Last year, he only made a couple of appearances. Maybe it looks like one appearance. There just wasn't enough room in the bullpen. But 2 years ago, he did a nice job in 27 innings in Louisville. That's why I called him up near the end, but didn't have room on the roster for him last season. So that's the pitching staff in a nutshell. I'll use the graphical depth chart here to tell you about our defense, and then we'll kind of get into the finer um, points of offense and lineup construction in just a little bit. But we're going to start in left field. Nick Annier. I traded for him last season in May. We really were striking out quite a bit, and I needed somebody that could play defense and avoid striking out. And so I brought him over. He was struggling before the trade. Finished off nicely, 2.5 WAR last season, off to a slow start this year. Hopefully he can turn it around. He's just 25 years old, maybe a little bit of development left to go. In center field, longtime Lion Klaus Van Straten. He has a good outfield range rating. He lost a little bit off of his bat a couple years ago. He had a few seasons that were really elite, 6.2 WAR, 5.6, up to 6.9 when he was 29. Then took a ratings hit the last 2 seasons, but has still worked out very nicely for us, having a resurgent year this year as well. He was a trade pickup quite a long time ago, so he's only played in the major leagues with Kentucky. Chris Bermudez is the best hitter on our team against right-handed pitching. Not quite as excellent against lefties, but he has been one of the forces in our lineup, 31 years old, but he's been pretty consistent ever since his age 23 season. He struggled despite hitting 27 home runs. He just didn't have that high batting average, but he's led the league in OPS and WRC plus one time back when he was 26, been an all-star 3 times, Silver Slugger 4 times. Hoping that his game, his bat will allow him to continue to play well into his 30s. That's the trend. You'll see lots of, age on this team, trying to figure out how to, we'll say, nudge that in the other direction. Mike Swanson has played third base for us this season. He's doing a really good job. He was a trade about, 8 years ago. Wasn't necessarily a major part of the plans to come up and play right away, but he had a nice year last year. That's why I decided to give him a shot. Last season, he played mostly first base. This year, I've got him at third base. He's not killing us despite his low infield range rating. Zach Zarzicki was another trade pickup about 6 years ago. In that same time frame, I was looking for some young talent, and these guys were who I went after. Zarzicki had a good year last year after multiple failed starts to the season. So at 86 plate appearances back in 2062, his rookie year, his OPS 524, got even worse in more playing time in his age 25 season, and the leash got shorter in 2064. This past season, due to some other guys aging out, gave him a shot, and he really impressed with his bat all the way up to a 92 OPS plus. Played to his potential a little bit more, 1.6 WAR. He's got great hands, good at turning double plays. His arm is good. I would love a little bit more range from the shortstop position, but he is good enough to play there as long as his bat is hanging on. So, just a 68 OPS plus this season. So far, hopefully he can get that up a little bit closer to the 92 that he had last season. Jumping over to second base, one of our best young players, really excited to build around him, 24 years old, Brodie Shanahan from Australia. He's got a great bat all around. He does the job at second base. Fan favorite personality, a little bit of speed. His rookie year was tremendous. He still maintained his rookie status in 2064, despite getting 111 plate appearances back in 2063. So 2064 was amazing. He lost in the Rookie of the Year to Washington's Joel Vasio. What a tremendous player, but 7.3 WAR, and he was not in the Rookie of the Year slot. That was pretty disappointing. But last year followed it up with an okay season, but on a great pace this year, 129 OPS plus. Hopefully he can keep up that pace. Lupe Matheson was a trade pickup in 2059 when I really reworked the roster. He was already an established player in Arizona. So in Arizona, he racked up 34.8 career WAR and really was ready for a second coming of his career when he moved over to Kentucky. And so he's nearly matched that production so far, off to a fine start this year, 132 OPS plus. His splits are really tough as well against left-handers. So another guy that at 37 years old, I don't know how much time he's got left, but he's going to be in the lineup against righties as long as those ratings continue to stay up there. Behind the plate, we've got Sam Sinclair, another guy who's not a superstar, but is definitely an important part of the lineup. Switch hitter, slightly better against righties, and he does a job defensively behind the plate. So far, one really solid season. 2 years ago in 2064, he hit 17 home runs, 756 OPS, and played some solid defense behind the plate. So hoping he can replicate that for a couple of years. And Brent Gates is our DH against righties. His ratings look a lot better on the splits page when he's playing against righties, but that 3 outfield range rating, not good enough to play consistently in the outfield. I'll stick him out there every once in a while. If we check out the lineups here, he actually I just made a change so that Van Stratton is going to play in left a little bit more. A couple of my bench guys, 4th outfielder Chung from China. He is a tremendous center fielder, great range, and then good enough error and arm out there. Good speed, so he could be a pinch runner as well. Doing just fine off the bench. Not a ton of consistent playing time yet, but he was a free agent pickup just a couple seasons ago, and I like the shape of his ratings. 30 years old, so we'll see how long that athleticism aspect of his game lasts, but he's good to have around. Backup catcher Ernie Miller, very average, 5s all around. Does a good job on defense, and he is doing okay, especially from a backup catcher. You don't need tremendous offensive production. You'd like to see that average up a little bit higher, but he is slugging just a little bit with those 2 home runs and 11 hits. Another backup infielder, Chris Gunther. He is my guy who I go to against lefties. He's going to play first base. He's got good splits, that righty guy, also 34 years old. And then finally, last guy on the bench is Andre Iranescu. And he is a former first round pick, 15th overall. And so he really hasn't found his way into the lineup with consistent playing time. He's been back and forth between AAA and the major league roster. But he had a nice season back in 2061. He just really hasn't been better than everyone else, especially with his defensive rating. So he's more of a DH to me. He can play from time to time in the outfield, but for me, he works better off the bench, can hit against righties, good speed, good base running. But sometimes the way the roster is put together, some guys don't get as many at-bats as they maybe should. So, making this video is great because it lets me look in and explain my decisions and check some things out that way. So that's what we've got. Lineup changes just a little bit. Ernie Miller does start against lefties. He's got a little bit of gap power there just to keep Sam Sinclair fresh. And, the ratings aren't all that different against left-handed pitching. So Iranescu starts against lefties and the DH role. Gunther at first base and Miller at catcher. So if you have any questions about the roster, want to see anything else, right now we're sitting at May 24th. We're 22-23. Let's check out our team stats. Really, our offense, I'm good with that, in 4th place in the Patriot League in runs. But I'm really disappointed in our pitching so far. I do expect that to kind of return to normal a little bit. One thing I've really got to decide is, do I need to focus more on defense? Our defensive efficiency is pretty low. Our zone rating is pretty low. 9th out of 10 teams. BABIP 9th. That's really hurting our pitching. Normally, we're a little bit higher in the strikeout rankings than 5th place. That can cause us to struggle a little bit, especially with our ballpark. Something that should be an easy tweak. I think we can fix up our base running by messing with the strategy settings a little bit on some of our base runners. So we're doing a good job hitting home runs. We've always slugged, trying to cut down on those strikeouts. I'm proud that we're up to 5th place in there. So we got off to a little bit of a slow start, continued by losing a couple games here in May. Let's check out April. So kind of back and forth, had a nice win streak, and then followed that up with a 4-game losing streak, and then kind of back and forth to end April. Another win streak of 4 games here in May, and then back and forth, back-to-back losses to Georgia. So hoping I can finish May strong and head into June with a winning record. So quick look around the league. If you're curious, New Jersey, Ontario, kind of up there with Pennsylvania at the top of the Patriot League North. Ohio leads our Patriot League South Division. North Carolina and Georgia. North Carolina there, and then we're tied with Georgia. Last year's champions, the Alabama Yellowhammers, off to a slow start, 8 games back, but it's so early in the season. Really close to where we are in real life, recording this video on June 1st. In the Frontier League out west, the Oregon Explorers, California Bulldogs, and Washington Residents all tied at 25 and 20. That's going to be a really tough division. And then the Frontier League East, New Mexico out front, Texas, Colorado getting up there as well. So we're all trying to jockey for position early on here in the season. Thanks for watching. And next time out, we'll check up on what happened at the end of May and through June, and check out a couple upcoming videos. We'll look at my minor league system and review the draft class that just entered into the league. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to keep up with the Kentucky Lions, and I'll see you in the next video.